We got to talk about these shows and the draft.
The draft's probably the most important
Here
thing.
is the latest on the draft. So, after night one, we have the first round of picks on SmackDown were Bianca Belair to SmackDown, Jey Uso to Raw, Carmelo Hayes to SmackDown, and Seth Rollins to Raw. So everybody was drafted to where they are,
Well,
except for Carmelo.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hold on. So the first thing they do is Carmelo is drafted before the Bloodline. Carmelo is drafted before Drew he's drafted before huge stars, right?
Yes.
And then he loses in 8 minutes to Cody Rhodes on TV.
Yes. That happened.
That happened.
Yes. Randy Orton to SmackDown in round
So
two.
he's drafted before Randy Orton.
Yes. Carmelo Hayes. Yes.
Yes. Do you think that Randy Orton would lose in 8 minutes to Cody in like just a match?
Doubt they'd have a finish, to be honest.
Yeah.
Braun Breaker to Raw, Nia Jax to SmackDown, and Liv Morgan to Raw.
Yeah, so everyone the same there except for Braun Breaker, right?
I think Nia...
and Nia.
Nia was on Raw. She's now to SmackDown.
Yeah. So
they did switch her.
Yeah, so Nia's going to feud with Bayley because she already attacked her. So they did all those weeks on Braun Breaker with everyone trying to, with both sides trying to get him, and then finally Nick Aldis got him, and now he's on Raw.
Yes, that's what happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's.
SmackDown. This is not the greatest draft I've ever seen. SmackDown.
Actually, I think it was the least exciting draft I've ever seen.
SmackDown gets LA Knight, who was already there.
Yeah.
Raw gets Ricochet, who was already there.
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown gets the Bloodline, who are already there, but it's only Solo, Tama, and Paul Heyman. Roman has withdrawn from the draft
Because he's not going to be around for a while.
Well, no, he could have been drafted. He voluntarily.
No. Okay, but CM Punk's going to be drafted.
CM
Punk's going to be drafted.
Yeah, I guess so. Some people who are injured are drafted, some are not.
Yeah, because Jimmy Uso's not drafted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's injured, they said.
Yeah.
And then Raw gets Sheamus, who they acted like was a trade, and it might have been, but he's been gone since September, and his first match back was Raw. So it may as well have been he got drafted back to his same brand.
Well,
I foolishly thought, remember when Ilya Dragunov declared for the draft? Yeah. And I said, well, he must be coming up because you're not going to get drafted back to your own brand. Well, apparently everyone is getting drafted back to their own brand.
Except for Carmelo. Well, Carmelo and Kiana James didn't.
Yes, Kiana. Well, actually, there's a few more we get to.
Okay, so as far as Sheamus goes, they already set up the feud with Drew McIntyre.
Yes.
So it's kind of like he kind of had to be. They both had to kind of be on the same brand, I would think.
Yeah. Well, the rosters don't lock until May something, so they could have done a blow-off.
Well, they could have done a 1 week feud, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for round 4, SmackDown gets AJ Styles, who was already there. Raw gets the Alpha Academy, who were already there. SmackDown gets Andrade, who actually I'm not sure. He kind of was wherever he was needed.
Yeah, but Andrade technically was a Raw guy.
Okay.
So he moved.
And Kiana James got called up to Raw. And I'm 99% sure she didn't know. Because
I don't think
she was in the audience and they called her name and she stood up and some dude ran up, like some production guy, and he threw her a hat and she's like, she got the hat, and then they go, after the break we're gonna talk to Kiana James, and they come back from break and they interviewed her and she's like totally out of character. She's like, I just want to thank everybody for all of the time and effort. And she was just like, okay, well, there she goes, and they all applauded.
Yeah, well, I don't think Carmelo knew either. Although
he had to know, he was already main roster.
Okay. I mean, I don't think he knew where he was going, but I think
that's possible.
I think he knew, like we knew, that he was coming up, which is like we're 95% sure. I don't think someone said, "Hey, you're up," because they don't do that. They legitimately don't tell anyone anything.
I did laugh too that they have this setup at the Performance Center. All the NXT people are there, and they announce that Carmelo's going up, and everyone stands and applauds. And there's Trick. Good job, Carmelo! He's applauding.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have done that, but oh well.
Yeah, well, but the other thing too is there's like 200 people there.
There's a lot of people there.
I mean, it is amazing the amount of people they have under contract. They have more people under contract legitimately than they have fans in that building when they have shows.
Yeah. So then they had the supplemental draft. So SmackDown got Cedric and Ashanti the Adonis, Baron Corbin,
who were already there but never on television.
Baron Corbin, who got called back up from NXT.
Yeah.
And Anderson, Gallows, and Meechin, who I think were SmackDown.
They were SmackDown.
And then Raw gets...
Okay, so here's interesting. So all the groups were together, except the OC, it was AJ Styles and the rest of them as separate entities.
He's split off.
Okay.
Just like Roman has. And then Raw's Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, who I think were SmackDown.
They were SmackDown, but they were hardly ever used.
Yep. And then Ivar, Shayna, and Zoe, who I think all were Raw.
Yeah, right. They've
been drafted back to Raw, yes.
Yeah. Very few changes. And
no.
I think that's the mentality. Look, you could go with the argument that, like, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
The other thing, too, is if you switch everybody, you have the same rosters just on different shows.
Well, you can switch like half the people. But instead, they're switching almost nobody.
Well, we'll probably get more switches, I'd presume, on Raw.
A few, but I think the basic gist is very fewer switches than ever before, and no champions being switched, which they told you ahead of time.
Yes.
First time ever is like, it's like no champions being switched.
All right, so the show itself opened up with all of the wrestlers and a screen explaining the draft rules. The rosters lock May 6th, so they announced that. And then Paul did the promo talking about how Roman had voluntarily withdrawn from the draft. So that does mean, by the way, in storyline, Paul and Roman are talking. So the idea in storyline had been that Paul had not talked to Roman about what was going on with Solo and Tama Tonga. But now we know that he has been talking to Roman.
I believe that you are thinking way too deeply.
I hope not.
I believe you are thinking way too deeply.
How is that thinking too deeply? So he talked to the guy and he pulled out of the thing.
Yeah, no, but I think that the idea
That's all they've discussed?
I think the idea is that, like, it's not like he has or hasn't talked. It's whatever's convenient that week.
I hope they're doing a better job storytelling than whatever's convenient on each given week.
I think that it's just whatever's convenient on each given week. That's how they explain it. Yeah.
So Corey was in the ring.
It's not like he went in there and said, "Oh yeah, just to Solo and everything. I talked to the tribal chief, blah 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 blah." They never said that. It was just a way to essentially not draft Roman Reigns first, because it would be an insult if they didn't, because he's in their world the biggest star, and they just decided, when he shows up. And obviously he's going to show up on SmackDown because his whole angle's with the rest of those guys. So it's just a way to announce, to get, whatever, different guys and different, not worry about him, I guess.
So Corey is in the ring to moderate contract signing with AJ and Cody. And essentially they discussed the match. They each signed. And then they shook hands. Mm-hmm. And that was it.
And AJ didn't really come across as a big heel, very, I mean, look, when your big heel spot is, I love your dad, by the way.
Yeah. And hey, at the end of the show, they had another stare down and shook hands again.
Yeah.
So after that, Hunter's music hit, shook Cody's hand. They did the first round of draft picks.
Yeah.
And
but I mean, though, the whole thing with Cody and AJ, it's essentially, it's like, we got a pay-per-view on May the 4th. And we want Cody to have a good win, and we want him to have a good match. And they got a guy who he should get a good win and a good match out of.